Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Backmarkers F1 show. This is our first edition of the driver power rankings after the first race of the season in Austria. What a fantastic race it was. If you haven't checked out our recap podcast for that race, it is just above here in the little annotation above, and you can also find the links down below as well in the description. So check out that podcast. Yeah, somewhere below there. It's there. Just go on the channel. You'll find it. Yeah. So we got our top 10 list, same thing as we did last year, ranking our drivers after the Australian Grand Prix, the Austrian Grand Prix. Austrian. Okay, so starting off with number 10, we got George Russell. First time a Williams driver, I think, has made the debut in our power rankings.
He made it once last year.
Made it once last year?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we were very thoroughly impressed with Russell in this race. I know that he did obviously not finish the race, but he was running up into P12 for a good part of the race. Had he been able to finish the race, most likely would have been in the points.
Yeah.
Not just that, though, also had a pretty impressive qualifying. Qualified P17, was only 7/100ths of a second off of the Q2 time of Romain Grosjean. So a big step forward. We talked about this in our recap from Williams. I think George Russell is just right there on the edge of scoring his first points ever in Formula One. And hopefully he'll be able to do it in this week's Styrian Grand Prix. But I was impressed by Russell's pace in the car. The way he also managed the race up until obviously his problem.
Yep.
So I think that's worthy of him finishing 10th in our list.
For sure. He qualified ahead of cars on track, not just because of grid penalties. So that's huge. And the Williams looks much better than what it was last year. So good for Russell, and hopefully he can continue and stay in our top 10. So our number 9 driver, that ends up being one of the Red Bull drivers, Alex Albon, and you're probably wondering why he's so far down in this list. He could have, won the race, but Albon had a solid weekend. Didn't qualify as well as he could have, though, and that's one of the main reasons why he's down there in P9 for us this week. It also has to do with his on-track display. Wasn't really pushing until the end when Red Bull put him out on soft tires there, and that really gave him a boost. So Alex Albon, although he had a good week, finishes P9 in our power rankings this week.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. He's still a little bit off of his teammate Verstappen in terms of qualifying. Of course, Verstappen qualified on a harder tire as well. So had Hamilton not punted him out of the race, might have won it, been higher on our list, but that's all right. He still got his chance this weekend.
That's right.
And then next up is Max Verstappen. I mean, despite him not finishing the race, his qualifying was phenomenal this weekend. And then, with the 15 laps he was in the race, he was really keeping up the pace, putting the pressure on the Mercedes. And, if you didn't have a mechanical failure, I think if he had lasted to the end of the race, we might have seen Max, in the podium, or who knows?
Yeah, in the podium, I would think for sure. Shaker, and with all of Mercedes' problems with their suspension that they were having, who knows if Verstappen was there to push them a little more, maybe that could extend that problem a little bit more as well. But didn't finish, not due to his fault, not his fault at all. But yes, it's P8.
All right, moving on to number 7, a driver that actually went quite under the radar in Austria, and that's Pierre Gasly. And of course, so many things happened in the Austrian Grand Prix. We kind of forgot about Gasly. Finished 7th in the race and propelled AlphaTauri into 5th in the constructor standing. So he had a pretty quiet race. Wasn't shown too much on the TV, but I think overall had a very strong race. Kept out of trouble, kept cool, obviously, kept the car on the track, which a lot of drivers weren't able to do, and had some good on-track battles as well. So it seems like Gasly's continuing his strong form from the second half of last season, of course, when he got his first ever podium. So he's put AlphaTauri on the front foot a little bit. I mean, they are ahead of Ferrari, or not ahead of Ferrari, excuse me. They are ahead of Red Bull in the constructor standings. So that says something after the first race. So that's why Gasly's there at 7.
Oh, that's pretty. You said it. You hit the nail on the head there.
Good.
That was perfect. Number 6, one of the racing points, Sergio Perez, and great qualifying for Perez. He started P6, 5,
P6,
finished P6 as well. Anyways, sorry if I'm wrong there, but anyways,
no, you're right.
I'm right, nailed it. Perez had a solid weekend, was really pushing at the start of the race, was in a podium position for a decent amount as well, and there was thoughts that he might get a podium, but was outclassed by the McLaren drivers and along with Charles Leclerc. But a good start for Sergio Perez. He sits P6, had a great qualifying as well, and we'll see if the Racing Point can have a little bit more pace going forward in the Styrian Grand Prix.
Yeah, and number 5 is this person started at number 5 in the race, finished number 5 in the race, and now he's number 5 in our standings, and it's Lewis Hamilton. He did have a good qualifying without taking away the little pushback from Red Bull. But otherwise, if he didn't have that incident, I think he would have continued with his podium. Would have been top 1-2 finish for Mercedes for sure. But I think just that incident with Albon at the end just kind of takes him out of it a little bit in contention with the rest of the 4 drivers that are up there.
And I think a main part too, Shaker, or at least one part, is that he couldn't get the extra mile to pass Bottas.
For sure. Yeah.
He couldn't find that extra little bit of pace to really get by and put the overtake pressure on Bottas as well.
For sure.
Yep, agree. All right, moving into 4th, we got Carlos Sainz of McLaren. And obviously, Carlos Sainz, a little bit under the radar as well because of the results from his teammate. But can't forget, he finished P5 in the race, helped haul a bunch of points for McLaren, which put them into 2nd in the constructor standings. He had some good battles with Lando in the mid part of the race, but again, he did a good job. One of the strengths of Carlos Sainz in 2019, obviously, was his racecraft. And he finished a bunch of P5s in 2019, and he's doing it again. So I think the first race of the season for him to get that 5th position, considering all the other cars that had mechanical issues, crashes, different things like that, I think it was really important for him and McLaren to start strong on the front foot there. And, he easily could have been on the podium as well with not with Lando, but he could have been on the podium, and he might even be on the podium this weekend. So Carlos seems like he's continuing off of the good form of 2019, so I think that puts him ahead of the other drivers that we had behind him.
For sure. P3 is going to go to Ferrari's Charles Leclerc, who, although didn't have the greatest qualifying, had a very, very good race. Finished P2 and was very quiet throughout the race. It was very strategic from him. Sat back, realized there were a lot of incidents happening, sat back, raced his race, was very consistent, and then attacked when he needed to in passing the 2 McLarens and Sergio Perez as well. I believe he passed to end up in P2 after obviously Hamilton's penalties. So a very good race from Charles Leclerc, and hopefully he can continue his little run at the start of the season. Hopefully the Ferrari's better with their upgrades coming this weekend.
Yeah, considering how poor the Ferrari was this weekend, even worse than many people had expected, what he was able to extract from the car was pretty impressive. Even though he had some luck that went his way, but still to be able to, he came on really strong at the end of the race, lighter fuel and on the harder tires. So I was pretty impressed by him. And obviously his 4-time world champion teammate had a much rougher go of it. So P2, I think, was a pretty big surprise for Ferrari coming away from that weekend.
Yeah, you guys, I think we mentioned it in our podcast as well earlier that, he just really completed his drive towards the end, just carried it through. And at number 2, we have Lando Norris getting his first ever podium as well as his first ever second row.
Yeah,
for qualifying.
I think so.
Yeah. So, he had a phenomenal weekend. Just held it down throughout all of qualifying and practice. And then when it really came down to it for the race, I said it for Charles, but very mature driving. Really held on there. Didn't put on too much pressure when he didn't need to. He just really secured that victory for that podium. At the very end, really put in the pressure in the last 10 laps. So.
Yeah, especially that last lap, fastest lap of the race, extra point as well to make sure he gets the podium and past Lewis's on that 5-second penalty. Yeah, he was phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost put him number 1. There's an argument to be made for, but he was super impressive
for sure.
But I don't think anyone surpassed this guy this weekend.
Yeah,
I don't think so. Definitely not on track.
Not yet. That's true.
Number 1, we got obviously the Flying Finn, Valtteri 3.0, Valtteri Bottas. He was number 1 quite a few times in 2019, but he starts off 2020 in that same spot as well. And yeah, I mean, what can you say? We touched on it in the podcast that he had a pretty dominant weekend. In qualifying, put in an extra great lap in Q3, and then controlled the race. He had a bunch of problems. I don't think that he fully revealed exactly the amount of problems that him and Mercedes had to deal with. He managed all that. He managed the pressure from Lewis Hamilton. all the safety car restarts as well. He nailed every single restart
Oh,
perfectly.
yeah, phenomenal restarts. I was watching them every single time. He really slowed it right down, gave himself that extra give him that little extra kick to
He
get
was
going.
almost catching the safety car too.
Yeah,
as
he
kinda
was, yeah.
whoa.
Very close.
No, he had some great restarts.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that this could be his year, and he's obviously started the same way he did in 2019, and with a shortened season, that might be an advantage to him. Maybe if he keeps this level up and keeps going that way. So really impressive from Bottas, and I think that he's in the right headspace for this season. Seems like he's even made some improvements, working on slow speed corners. He was talking about that in the preseason. So very excited to see what he'll be able to do against his teammate, because it seems like, again, it'll be between Mercedes, who will be winning the championship. So Valtteri Bottas starting the year first place on the track and on our list as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's it then.
That's it. That was it. If you don't agree with their power rankings, which you probably won't, especially if you're new to this series, make sure you comment below what were your top 10 and let us know what you guys think as well. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and we'll have plenty more of controversial top 10s coming for the rest of the year, which aren't controversial to us. We agree on it, but I mean, you know,
We're smart.
We know our stuff.
so we think.
We know our shit. So just go and subscribe and enjoy the show. Thanks, folks. We'll see you next time.